So, a common problem that a lot of politicians love to talk about every time there's a economic problem is how hungry a lot of people are. It drives me nuts because practically nobody is dying of starvation. If anything, the only people who die of starvation do so by choice, right? Whether it be somebody who has a body image problem, or occasionally there's a hunger strike of some sort, and occasionally people do die of that. Practically nobody dies of starvation for economic reasons, but it's a very emotional subject, right? And I think part of the reason it's so emotional is that just about everybody can relate to the idea of being hungry to the point of pain, but not necessarily to the point of there being a crisis that they might die or get permanently injured, right? So hunger is a very emotional word. The idea of not having a luxury in life, or having to live with somebody that they don't know, or the idea that they might have to move home with their families, or the idea that they have to think outside the box, and maybe eat something that they're not accustomed to, right? That doesn't get people as nearly as riled up because those things aren't immediately painful, right? Having to live with your family might not immediately cause a burning pain in your stomach the same way that not eating for 48 hours might, right? And so it's a very emotional word. But the real problem is that people are eating the wrong stuff, right? And people are having a poor relationship with food. I want to talk about a developed country that has probably the lowest obesity rate in the developed world, Japan, and my experience with living there. I was there for about a month for a conference one time, and I've had other trips there that were shorter. And one thing that immediately jumps out in Japan is their food culture. They don't seem to have a problem eating everywhere and anywhere, right? On the trains, at their workplaces, even at a conference, right? I would see people nibbling away at the conference halls, and yet they're the thinnest people in the world. Why? And also, don't forget, their stock market also closes for an hour for a lunch break every day, and yet they're the thinnest people in the world. And I think the reason for that is because they're so freely available to eat any time. They're more in tune with what happens when they eat, right? Here in the United States, we don't have a whole lot of time to eat. In between our work commitments, our life commitments, there isn't a whole lot of time to eat. So when you do get it, you guzzle up all the food that you can, and it really messes with your body senses, right? If you're guzzling food at a time when you're not hungry because you have to go to work, have to interact with certain people, have to give a presentation, and you can't really eat in the conference hall, that really messes with your body cues, right? And it makes it easier to eat all the time when you're not hungry. And but here in the United States, we don't think about that, right? And we eat all the wrong stuff too, right? So for example, last year, Biden increased the amount of food stamps we can get. I think it's always been adjusted for inflation, but Biden, well, at least the fake inflation figures, but obviously Biden lies about inflation, so now he needs to lie about increasing food stamps as well to cancel out that lie, right? But then I go to the store and I look at what people are buying with food stamps, and most of that isn't even food to begin with, right? It might be a source of entertainment, don't get me wrong. People abuse their bodies in other ways besides food too. So maybe food is another way we could abuse our bodies, but that's not food, right? And then I remembered in Japan, people seem to have all sorts of other ways to entertain themselves, right? I read that of it. I was going to visit they have this because Sega, the video game, was invented in Japan. They have this big Sega like amusement park of some sort with all sorts of video. I wanted to go there, but unfortunately it didn't have time. That time I was in Japan. But I also learned that some people in Japan play video games for days on end and literally die in front of the screen. And not to say that isn't harmful, but at least it's not eating yourself to death, right? And in Japan, people haven't lost sight of what they want, right? In an economic crisis, they don't go stuff themselves to death, right? They've been in a 30-year recession, and their obesity rate has fallen because they can't afford to eat, right? They don't lose their mind on, oh my God, we need to pump food into the economy, right?